cannot believe it's already time for me to film this video, but welcome back to my channel. Today's video is of course my April monthly setup video, and this video is going to be a bit interesting. I'm recreating a theme I did in my 2020 bullet journal setup, and that was before I even thought about starting a YouTube channel and putting my ideas out there. So I'll add some clips in there of my theme of 2020 for April, so I hope you guys like it. But without saying anything further, let's just get straight on into the video. So the theme I did in my 2020 bullet journal setup was a bee and a honeycomb setup. So it was a lot of yellow and oranges with cute little bees going around it, and this one's a little bit different. It's a bit more simple than the one I did in 2020, and there's some clips coming up. I did more honey dripping and a lot more details in my April bullet journaling setup. I blended the yellows together and the oranges. Everything was kind of flowing into each other like honey, I guess, and especially this page, super detailed with the flowers, and this one took me a very long time to do, and I just decided to kind of scale it back a level and go back to the simpler type things and just use a couple different colors and not bother about fading it too much. This is just a totally reimagined version of it, using pretty much the same colors but spreading it out more, putting the honeycombs all the same color, not too much of a difference. And I didn't outline them. I really have been liking not outlining things recently. If you were to ask me a couple years ago if I like outlining things or not, I outlined everything, almost everything. I don't know why. I feel like it just kind of made it pop out of the page more, that you can see it more clearly, but I only outlined the word April in the center here and the bees also with my micron pen. The bees were really cute. I was showing this setup to my mom afterwards when I was done, and some of the bees are a bit more skinnier and some are bigger, and it's so cute, honestly. I love the very furry bees. They're super cute. So yeah, I just continued to outline the bees, and I colored them in with my yellow Tombow dual brush pen. If I remember, I'll put down all the numbers for the Tombow brushes down below in the description. So I used this stencil for all the hexagons just to keep them all similar, and I drew these smaller hexagons over top of the others. Onto the left page, I did a quote. It says, "Don't worry, be happy." The good old-fashioned quote, and instead of just BE, I wrote B, obviously, since this is a bee theme. Also, in the previous page, you can see I took the stencil I have and used the smaller hexagon and put that over the larger hexagon, kinda in the center where the point meets the center of the black outlined hexagon. I have no idea if that made any sense, but all that matters is I drew these, and I think it gave it a cute little effect, and it made it not super plain. So I continued to color in the rest of the hexagons with a light yellow, a medium yellow, and a darker orangey yellow, and then I did the small hexagons over top of those like my previous page. I colored in the words with a darker brown Tombow brush pen, and then the boxes I have the worry and happy in, I colored that in with a lighter brown pen. The boxes I kind of imagined as bee boxes. They don't look like bee boxes in any way, but I just thought the thought was there, and boxes, bee boxes, you know, it just worked out like that in my head. I don't know why. Onto my calendar page, I wrote April in the big bubble font at the top, a little bit bigger than the letters in the previous two pages, and I free-handed the calendar with my 01 micron pen. I made the edges rounded instead of them cornered. Everything in this setup is rounded except for the hexagons, which I think is a really cool contrast. Usually I would make everything look mostly similar, so I'd have the calendar be pointed and the hexagons pointed, the letters pointed, all that, but I just decided to do the boxes rounded this time and have the hexagons edges pointed.
I continued to color in the hexagons with my 3 different shades of marker, and after this I filled in the April with my darker brown pen. All of this was super simple to do. It was just coloring inside of the pencil lines, and I didn't need to outline it later with my micron pen, so I wasn't really worried about going over the lines or anything because you would barely be able to see it anyway. Next, I colored in the boxes for the calendar. I think it adds a bit more contrast that it's not just all plain and white. I also highlighted my YouTube growth tracker, Instagram tracker, and my notes title in the same color. Here I'm just drawing out another little bee in the top right corner. I first outlined things, which I usually don't do. Sometimes I color it in first and then I outline it, but sometimes I feel like it doesn't work as well because then you don't have the borders to color inside, but you have to outline it over it, and then sometimes it doesn't work out too well, so I just decided to outline it first. Onto my mood tracker. This one is different than the mood tracker I did in my 2020 setup. In my 2020 setup, I did the bees with the wings and the different little scale part of it, of the wings. I colored in a different shade of blue, but I don't know if I really liked the blue with the yellow in my 2020 setup. I think it looked pretty, but I wanted to do something a little different, so I just decided to do one honeycomb for each day of the month, and I'll color that in according to the color that is linked with the mood I felt that day. I outlined this in a darker mustard yellow pen, and I didn't outline the hexagons in black since all the other hexagons aren't outlined in black. I was originally going to do it with my pen, but then I thought it would look a bit too different and I want to keep everything kind of the same. So I just continued to use my stencil and outline each of these hexagons, and I really like how this looked. It looks really cool, as if it's jumping out of the page, and I like the little bees on top of them and the smaller hexagons around it. My habit tracker, pretty much the same. I outlined the words in the bubbly font letter, and also the calendars have the rounded edges just like my big calendar page. I'm thinking of, for my next setup, doing a smaller calendar page. I don't use it too often. I mostly use my notes and my mood tracker, habit tracker, and my 1 line a day memory tracker, mostly to keep track of things, and I usually just write notes more other than plan things in the boxes, but usually there's not a lot going on in each day, so I'm thinking of condensing my calendar page into one single page on the right or the left page in the beginning of my book. Let me know in the comments what you think will be better. I'm not sure yet. I'll probably try it for 1 month, maybe for May, and see how it goes. But anyway, let me know in the comments. Next, onto my 1 line a day. This one's always pretty simple, it goes really fast. I wrote 1 in the bubbly letter font again and drew the box with my pen. Wrote out all the numbers 1 through 30, and then I continued to color in the hexagons all around the page. But yeah, this theme was really fun to recreate. It really felt like it came naturally, especially drawing the bees and coloring in the hexagons. It was really fun to recreate it. I'm kind of thinking of maybe doing a bigger project where I maybe paint a bee or do colored pencils, because I really love coloring with colored pencils, and it's always a fun project to start. So I'm thinking of maybe doing a bigger project with the bees, because me and my mom, we have this thing with them. I don't know why. It's just these type of things are always so pretty, and I love the theme of it. So I'm thinking of doing something like that. I highlighted the numbers with the lighter brown pencil and also did some lines in between some of the numbers. Onto my next page, I have my playlist page, and this time I'm doing it a little bit differently. I have the little album covers smaller than I usually would, and I just drew these lines in between to separate the songs. At the bottom here, I'm drawing this box, and this is going to be for albums and songs I'd like to listen to in the future. So usually I just have my notes app open and write down albums or songs I want to listen to at one point, maybe while I'm drawing or editing. And I decided to write this down to kind of track down what I've been listening to, and I can go back into the past and maybe rediscover some new music I liked. And I don't know, I've been in this music zone lately where I've been listening to so many different albums and so many different songs and from different artists that I don't usually listen to. And I'd say in the past week or two, I've listened to 20 plus albums, multiple different songs. It's been so much fun for me, especially while drawing and editing. It's very relaxing. So I decided to make this one of those, I don't remember what you call it. I don't know if it's a Dutch door or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember what these are called, but it's kind of like a half page or a 3/4 page where I cut off the sides. And I did this in my 2020 bullet journal setup, and I totally miss doing this. I always loved cutting the piece of paper off, and it just looks so cute. And I outlined the little edge of it in my lighter marker pen. So like I was saying earlier when I was explaining my rounded edges and sharper edges in my calendar page, I also did rounded edges for this to give it a bit of a contrast, and also would have been really hard to cut out the edges around each hexagon. And here I printed out the little album covers. These are super small. I think they're about 1 centimeter long each, and I cut them out and glued them onto the page. But first I wrote down the title and the artist in between the little spots for each song. Some of these include songs from Conan Gray, Vance Joy, One Republic, and Imagine Dragons. And these are just songs I've recently been listening to. Some of these songs haven't been constantly on repeat, but some I've been really enjoying lately, or just found meaning to them or could relate to them. These are just songs that I've been liking these days. So I just glued these on, and these were kind of tricky since they were super small, but yeah, I completed that and moved on to the next page. Onto my last 2 pages, I decided on making a to-do list instead of just the normal 2 quote pages. I wanted to have a use for one of the last 2 pages. Usually the last page I just keep the little quote and something cute to end it off with, but I wanted to have a use for this one, and I think this is a really good idea because I always write things down on my phone, and I want to make more use of my bullet journal and use it more, and I think this is a good way to do it because there's always stuff on my mind that I always forget about, and just having my bullet journal close by and quickly jotting something down is going to help me a lot. I also did the hexagons and bees on the side. It's actually the exact opposite. The colors aren't precise, but they're mostly opposite considering where the hexagons and bees are placed. Onto my last page, I colored in the hexagons, and I decided to draw a little sunflower in the bottom left corner with the little bee on it, taking some of the pollen, and I think this one is super cute. Now, the sunflower doesn't exactly match the quote with the roses, and I'll explain that later, but I really wanted to keep everything with the same color scheme, so I decided to go with a sunflower, and this isn't exactly what a sunflower looks like, but I kind of wanted to keep the general idea of it. I did the little dots with a darker brown pen, and then I continued to write down the words on the paper, and it says, "Even busy bees stop and smell the roses." And I interpret this as, even if you're extremely busy and your weeks are jam-packed with a bunch of different activities you have to do, or just being places, having to do things, going to work, there's always a time to just take a break, or you should always take a break. Just sit down, have a cup of tea, and watch a movie. I feel like there's always that time, and I've been having that recently, and just I feel like It's been so busy lately with my life and everything that I've been doing, but there's always that time to take a break. So anyway, here's my final flip through of this month. I really enjoyed making this one. It was really cute. This one was not on the way detailed side, but afterwards I added some drop shadows on the calendar to add it a little bit more effect to it, especially with the 3/4 half page thing with the orange around the edges. I really like that. And my last page, I really like this one, probably my favorite, especially because of the sunflower.
So there was my reimagined April 2020 bee theme and honeycomb theme. It was such a fun one for me, especially to revisit that theme since that was my favorite month I did in my 2020 bullet journal setup and one of my favorites of all time. It was so fun to redo it and it felt like it almost came naturally to me, just drawing out the little bees and the hexagons. It was just a lot of fun for me. I really hope you guys found some inspiration for it. So until the next video, see ya.